some research from the Center for Aging Better that found that more than half employers agreed that an age-inclusive workforce would increase productivity, and 76% of employers saw older workers' experience as crucial to their organization.
I am very happy to welcome back Maggy Pigott as my guest today. Maggy is a job-sharing pioneer. She job-shared with her partner for 23 years across 7 positions and retired at a joint chief executive level. And together with her partner, she received a CBE for her efforts regarding job sharing. Today, we will also talk about flexible work in the context of another passion in Maggy's life, aging well. Maggy wrote the book, How to Age Joyfully, 8 Steps to a Happier, Fuller Life.
Welcome to the show, Maggy.
Hello, and lovely to be back, Karin. Lovely to see you again after, it's been a while, an interesting couple of years, but lovely to be back.
Thank you so much for returning to the show. And for people who might not have listened to your first episode with the show yet, and I will be sure to put it in the show notes, can you share where are you calling in from? And is there a particular food or site in your area?
Right, well, I'm calling from London, England, as you can probably tell by my accent. As regards food, well, I love all foods, so I'll give you 2. I can't, even 2 is hard. The healthy one are berries. I love berries. We eat loads and loads of berries every day. I just find them so good. And then the less healthy one is I adore chocolate pudding. Those puddings that have chocolate sauce in the center that when you cut into them, and then chocolate sauce on top, and then vanilla ice cream. I love that. There's a quote by Charlie Schultz, who did Peanuts, who said, all you need is love, but a little chocolate now and then doesn't hurt. And I subscribe to that, except that it's a bit more often with me than now and then. But those are two foods I'm very keen on. As regards a site, as you know, we've just had the Platinum Jubilee. Our Queen still working at 96 and 70 years on the throne. And I think the site would be how wonderful London's looked recently, all decorated with balloons and bunting and Union Jacks. And it's just shown off London to great effect. We had a street party, and seeing the other houses all decorated in their front gardens was just wonderful. So that's nice. I shall miss it when they're all taken down and all the decorations go. But at the moment, London's looking rather good.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it brings back my own memory. I lived in England for 9 years, but I was just thinking, I think at least 10 years, I think even more, maybe 15 years since I've been back. So
you'll have to come back.
I should definitely come back.
Yes, definitely. It's probably changed a bit.
I think so. So, Maggy, the last time when you were on the show, we spoke about your career and your long-time experience as a job-sharing pioneer. And now for somebody who doesn't know you yet, could you just give an overview of how you got into job sharing and maybe some of the most rewarding experiences for being a job sharer?
Right. Well, I qualified a very, very long time ago as a lawyer, a barrister, in fact. But it was always my intention, one of my top goals, not to work full time if I ever had a family. So I quite quickly gave up the practicing bar because I didn't think that would be a very family friendly career. and joined the government legal service, went into the civil service as a lawyer, into what became ultimately the Ministry of Justice, where I spent my whole career, actually. And I got into job sharing via part-time working. I worked full-time for 8 years, but then when our first child was born, I asked to work part-time and was thrilled to be allowed to come back after 6 months off to work part-time. Did that for 5 years, and then it was really interesting because I had this incredible, far-sighted, innovative boss, a man too, who had a vacancy. He had a full-time legal administrative post that he needed filling, and he had me as a part-timer, and he had Judith, another part-timer. And really, he just said, why don't you combine and try doing it together as a full-time role? And honestly, Karin, I had never thought about such a way of working. I'm not sure he had, but we talked about it. We got on, we knew each other. So we thought, why not? So we decided to give it a go. And as they sort of say, the rest is history. It seemed to work. But when we did it, and this is back in 1988, I mean, job share was just unheard of. So there was no policies, no role models, no practices. So we were really at liberty to just make it up as we went along, which is what we did. And it was great. And we had 23 years together, 7 jobs. We got promotion along the way. And we're lucky enough to end up as joint chief executive of the Judicial Training Organization, as you know, training 40,000 judges, which was an amazing, amazing job. So as regards what was most rewarding, well, it was all rewarding, actually. I just loved it. I feel very lucky to have been able to do it. I think what was really rewarding was being able to have such an exciting, challenging, fulfilling career, but at the same time, be able to have 4 days a week with the kids as they were growing up. And then when they were sort of more independent beings, to have a bit of time, even for myself, which is also nice when on my days off, and also helping to look after my elderly mother who got dementia and needed some care. So I think that what was most rewarding was literally being able to hold down a really full-time job, very full-time job, as well as having work-life balance, really having it all. I think my favorite, most rewarding job was probably the 5 years we spent in dealing with senior judicial appointments, interviewing people who wanted to become judges, and making recommendations to the Lord Chancellor. I loved that job. And our last job as a CEO was also great. And another rewarding thing, I think, was being able to help others who wanted to job share, because it was so new and different and people didn't know about it. It was great to be able to really role model it and advise people who wanted to take it up, to mentor, support, to even help with training of managers who really had never come across it, and to see it grow, albeit very slowly and at a snail's pace, but even so, to get a few other people in the department also job sharing, and to get it accepted in the department as a sort of normal way of working. That was hugely, hugely rewarding. And then I think probably the other great thing that was rewarding was being honoured at the end of it all by getting an award, which was lovely. I think the day Judith and I went to Buckingham Palace and got our CBEs from Prince Charles was wonderful, and a day I'll never forget that. It was just amazing and wonderful for job sharing, because that was part of the reason we got it. And that was great that they really recognized job sharing as a thing, and something that was important, and something that really worked and benefited the department and the civil service. So yes, I feel I have been incredibly lucky in that way. Yeah.
Wow, that's, thank you for sharing. It's just wonderful. And, the recognition of all the work and effort you have put into not only in your own job, but as you said, training other people, expanding the number of people who ended up being job sharers themselves. And I'm sure that then, further spread and spread, because I think one of the biggest, from what I'm, seeing is, problems about not having so many job shares is that people have no good role model.
Exactly.
The only thing they can immediately think of are, potential problems. But because they haven't seen it in action, because they haven't seen it succeed and all the benefits, it might be something they're like, well, maybe I won't try it, or I won't propose it to my boss. But in the case of, having you as an amazing mentor and seeing how well it works.
You're so right, Karin. I mean, I think that is the biggest barrier, is if people haven't seen it in operation, they can come up with 47 reasons why it won't work. And they just are scared of it. And we always got well, what will happen on the day you're not there, and if I need you, and all these other sort of things. But if they've actually seen it work, and seen even ministers and senior judiciary finding that it operates just as well as just having one person, and that the whole thing can work seamlessly. It takes effort, right, sure, but that it really can be a success, then all that fear and all that concern really just goes. And in our department, it was just considered normal, really. And at one stage, we had 3 pairs of senior civil service job sharers, and people came to our department and applied as a job share for that very reason, because they knew that in the department where we were, it wasn't thought of as something to be scared of or that wouldn't work. It was just accepted. And that's what needs to happen so much more out there, particularly in the private sector, because I think the public sector is much better at this sort of thing, if I say so, and really spearheaded this form of working ahead of really what the private sector has done. Although it is improving, but not quite as many people job sharing now that I thought there would be when I started.
Yes. And now, so I've been reading about people retiring, in the beginning of the pandemic, and now as it is dragging along, they're actually unretiring. And so I'm wondering, one of the aspects of job sharing could be intergenerational job sharing. And maybe could you share a little bit your thoughts about the advantages of having a intergenerational job share?
Yes. Well, I mean, obviously, Judith and I were just 2 or 3 years apart. And in the time when we were job sharing, which was, as I said, a long time ago, people tended to be at the same stage of life and the same age, and even they tended to be the same, usually women, although we did have a couple of men. So I don't have direct experience of intergenerational job share. But having said that, I am absolutely convinced that it could work brilliantly, and it would have some advantages that actually having 2 people at the same level and at the same stage in life don't bring to the party. I mean, I think that, well, at any age, we can learn from people from other ages. I mean, I think older people do have, I hope, a sense of perspective on life. They bring their experience to it. They bring their, I hope, some wisdom that they've accumulated over the years. And I was reading, funnily enough, only in the last couple of days, some research from the Center for Aging Better, that found that more than half employers agreed that an age-inclusive workforce would increase productivity, and 76% of employers saw older workers' experience as crucial to their organization, which is great. I mean, we're recognizing that older people have a lot to offer an organization, and I certainly think that's right. But then younger people have a huge amount to give to an organization too. It may be different, they may bring different skills, but we can learn from each other. I've learned so much from my kids who are now in their late 30s and 40, and they've introduced me to so much and given me a new perspective on things. So I think there would be an awful lot to be said for having that. It's like that film, The Intern, with Robert De Niro. Yes. I mean, I just love that film, and I thought it was just so true. But having said that, I do think I would have one cautionary note, which is that I think job shares only work if there's real mutual respect and trust between the job sharers. And I think they really have to be equal partners in any job share. It won't work if one is sort of seen as more experienced or more senior to the other. So I think that my only caveat would be that people, if they wanted to share and they were very much of different generations, it would have to be recognized that the two were absolutely level pegging and had something to bring to the table, which was equal, and that there would be that mutual trust and respect between them, because that was absolutely fundamental, I think, to the success of our job share. But apart from that, I absolutely would think that it would be a great thing to do, but I haven't actually met any job sharers which are of different generations. But hey, let's hope it happens.
Yeah, thank you. These are really great points. Yes, and now you are retired now, and you've written a wonderful book, How to Age Joyfully: 8 Steps to a Happier, Fuller Life. And so could you share with our listeners about this?
Well, thank you for your kind words about the book. I'm thrilled that I actually managed to write it and get it published. It was my first book that I'd written and published when I was 68, so I never really dreamt it would happen, and I'm thrilled that 3 years on that it still seems to be selling and doing quite well. So the book, well, it's really a book about living well. A lot of people said to me I shouldn't have called it How to Age Joyfully. I should have called it How to Live Joyfully, because of course we're all aging from day one. And it really is all about how you can live better for longer, how you can have a happier, healthier, more fulfilled life at any age. Although, to be fair, I think a lot of the tips, and there are about 150 tips in the book, are perhaps slightly more geared to midlife onwards, to people in that stage who are maybe coming up to retirement or retired. But I think when I retired and I suddenly realized I was having a ball and life was great, I started getting interested in what makes for a successful later life, and started researching that really and talking to people who seem to have been successful in later life. And I then found that it seemed to come down to 8 ingredients that went into this recipe for a good later life. And there isn't a silver bullet about it. It's really a combination of factors. And they're not rocket science. It's not original, because it is based on research and evidence, and my personal experience and the experience of others who know rather more about all this than I did. So having come up with these 8 steps, I include them in the book, and I'll share them with your listeners. And as I say, I expect most people could come up with them themselves. But the first one is physical activity, and that's probably the most important. The miracle cure, as our National Health Service calls it. We all do need to move more, especially after the pandemic, when I think we all sat far too long and too much in front of screens and Zoom calls. The second is what I call eat right, and it's all about eating a healthy diet, eat the right food in the right quantities for most of the time, because we are a society that not only is getting more sedentary, but is also actually getting more obese and overweight, and that costs our society billions of pounds. So there's an awful lot we can do to try and improve our diets ourselves. The third one is, I think, possibly the most important as well, and that's having a purpose in life, having a reason for being. The Japanese, I think, call it ikigai. I probably pronounced that wrong. But I think having something to live for is absolutely vital, whatever age you are, whether you're young or older or old. And of course, working is that purpose for an awful lot of people. That work is what gives it to them. And then the fourth one is also crucial, and that's being socially connected, having strong relationships that you can rely on. The Centre for Aging Better in the UK here has done some research, and two of the things that they focused on that are really important for a good later life are having a purpose and having good social connections. And there's research that has shown that if you're lonely and isolated, it's as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, which I found amazing. So again, work gives you that to a large measure. So social connections, very important. My fifth step is about what I call grow, but it's all about lifelong learning, not necessarily formal learning, but just being curious about life, being interested, being willing to try new experiences, and just trying new things throughout life. The sixth step is gratitude, being grateful, which happily we can learn. And there are tips in the book, as with everything, on how you can learn to become more grateful. Apparently, it's incredibly good for you. It has all sorts of benefits. The seventh is giving, and that is giving both to others in whatever way you can. Doesn't have to be huge. It can be your time or money or volunteering, but also giving to yourself, because I think self-care is often missed, and it's very important that people have some me time and actually have some time for themselves and give to themselves, because you really can't help other people if you're not in a place and you haven't looked after yourself. And then last but not least, the eighth step is equally a very important one, and that's having a positive attitude. And that, again, having a positive attitude, research has shown that those that have it live on average an extra 7.5 years, which is incredible. But it really does work. And again, it's something that you can help yourself, because only 25% of low optimism is inherited. So there's 75% to play for to become more positive. So those are basically the 8 steps in the book. And I try to show how you can apply them, how you can do it. And even doing one of them will have some benefit, but obviously they interconnect a lot as well. And research has shown that these things really will help to provide a better later life. And so that's what the book's really about. And it has about 200 wonderful quotations in it, from Aristotle to Oprah Winfrey. And a lot of people say to me, oh, I thought the quotations were wonderful. They're so inspiring. And I said, that's the only bit of the book I didn't write, you know. But I'm delighted that people like the quotations because they are wonderful. Some of them are wonderful. They are very amusing.
Well, thank you. This is, I feel somebody who is, middle age or planning to retire, I think it will be an awesome book to kind of prepare already and really look at what the important things are, to age or to, become older joyfully. So that's.
Well, funny you should say that, because I've had a couple of people who are in the who in organizations, and they've said to me that they're thinking of when they have midlife seminars or preparation for retirement seminars, and they're thinking of, I don't know whether they've done it, but they've said this a while ago, 2 or 3 different people, that they would give a copy of the book at the seminar, because actually it doesn't cost that much, but it would be a nice sort of thing to give, and it would be helpful as a preparation for retirement. So I thought, well, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that's happened or not, but certainly several people have said that to me. So it's interesting to hear you say that.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I feel, and, as we're talking about retirement, and, I feel some organizations might have these presentations already, but others, might not have the time or money. And so having a book is a wonderful start to, change maybe somebody's perspective on like what it means. And like, as you're retired, I'm curious, and, maybe you're biased because you've written the book, but if you reflect back, is there something you wish you would have known while you were in the process, maybe the last 5 years of your work, that, would have been of help to you before you retired?
Yes. Well, I was unfortunate in a way, because I retired through ill health, and I hadn't planned to retire at all. I'd wanted to go on working. So it was all a bit of a shock, and something that wasn't really thought about. But I do think that it would have been, had I known about it a bit more. I do think, and it comes back to what's in the book, I do think thinking about the future and what your purpose might be once you retire is quite important, because one's work on the whole is such an all-consuming thing. Even if you work part-time, it's still a huge part of one's life. And suddenly, I certainly found, when I had given up work, from having a diary just packed with meetings, and then all of a sudden you have this sort of empty diary, apart from, in my case, a few medical appointments. And you suddenly think, well, what's this all about? And if I'm lucky, I might have 20, 30 years left. And what am I going to do? And is it all over? And it's a big change. And I don't think I really appreciated quite how big a change it was, because when I was at my retirement party, all my colleagues who had already retired said to me, oh, it's wonderful, you'll never look back, it's amazing, retirement is the best thing. And I thought, oh, this is great. And then, of course, when I actually retired, I really got quite depressed. And now, partly, of course, I wasn't well. But I don't think it was only that. I think, you suddenly realize you've lost your identity, you've lost your role, you've lost your work colleagues who you get on with, you've lost pay. And now you've got nothing. So I think it is important to try and have some goals and to think ahead a bit about what you might want to do and to prepare for it. Having said that, I do think there's merit in not planning to the nth degree for when you've given up. because I didn't, because I couldn't, because I wasn't well. And actually, I think it was a real bonus because it gave me time to reflect and think about what I wanted to do with this new stage in life, because I had that space and because I hadn't committed myself to lots of things. Because originally I thought when I retired, oh, I'll do lots of things to do with the law. And then I thought 6 months down the line, well, no, actually, there was this whole world out there of creativity and new things, and my dancing and volunteering. And when I got better and got into all these things and then writing, I suddenly realized that my life had taken a completely different path. And I think if I filled up my diary and planned everything meticulously beforehand, I wouldn't have had that mindset, and I wouldn't have had the opportunity. So I think it's important to basically allow yourself some time as well to think about what you want, but to give yourself time to try. It comes back to what I say in the book: try lots of different things, see what suddenly might inspire you or give you a new passion. I never thought I would write, but unless you try it, you'll never know. So I think it's really a combination of treat yourself gently and realize it might well be hard to begin with, but when you get over that change curve and you get through it, it's absolutely wonderful. And I can't recommend it highly enough. It's been just amazing. And I've never been happier than since my mid-60s, with all the new things that I'm learning and doing and all the new people that I've met.
Wow, that is wonderful. And now, so you retired and, having worked a job sharing position. So now I'm wondering, say somebody who is planning to retire and they were working full-time for decades, and as we are growing older in general, can you envision that maybe more people will sort of phasing out their retirement and maybe then starting to go into a part-time or job sharing position over time, and in that sort of interim, to avoid maybe what you said, going from packed meeting schedules to nothing?
Yes, I think it would be a great way to, well, two benefits really. One, to perhaps enable people to work longer, because if you are only working, say, 3 days a week instead of full on 5 or 6 days a week, that might enable you to want to work longer, or to be able to work longer, particularly if you have, say, caring responsibilities that suddenly come along with older parents. So I think that starting to work flexibly later in life would be a great thing. And also, I think that we will have to work longer because we're living longer and we get our pensions later. We will need to work for a longer period. So to be able to start doing it part-time and then develop other interests, and find other passions or interests that you want to follow, would be a great way of doing that transition. And I think that also with the pandemic and COVID, the world of work has changed hugely. And we're not going to go back. The sort of cat is out of the bag, and people have really seen the benefits and want to work more flexibly. And you've got far more hybrid working now. And people see that you can be just as productive. And I think employers are seeing that as well as employees, that you can still not necessarily work absolutely full time, but still be highly productive. I mean, job sharers are incredibly productive. I think the research backs that up. But I think flexible working is becoming much more the norm now since the pandemic. So we could build on that. And I think we ought to grasp that opportunity and move forward and promote job sharing, part-time working, particularly later in life. I think sadly, the downside against that is that we still live in an age of ageism, and it's still a youth-centric world. And many people in their 50s actually stopped working in the pandemic, even though they didn't want to. I mean, there may have been lots of reasons. They may have wanted to reassess their life, or they may have got ill or want to do other things. But also, there was also a statistic that I saw from the Office for National Statistics that said 250,000 more people aged 50 to 64 became economically inactive compared to pre-pandemic levels. That's a lot of people in that age group from 50 to 64 that have lost out and have left the workforce. And I think that is something that needs to be addressed, and ageism needs to be addressed. And we need to promote job sharing and part-time working for all ages, but for older people as well. And that would, as I've said, would help the transition and will be a win-win. It's such a golden opportunity now, I think, to grasp the willingness of employers perhaps to be a bit more flexible and innovative, and to take up the baton of flexible working and job sharing, and see all the amazing benefits that you can get from it. And then the people who are able to work like that, and if they can, then they can use that extra time to do what I said earlier about thinking about what they want to do and how they're going to use that in getting ready for when their office door finally closes and they're not there anymore. So yes, I think it would be a great thing to promote for all ages, but particularly later in life. I think it's got a lot going for it.
Thank you. And I feel you are such a great role model and example. You really, really are. And I'm super appreciative that, you come onto the show now for the second time to share more about it, because I think it so well interconnects. And now, is there anything that you feel we haven't covered today that you would like to share with our audience?
I don't think so. I think we've probably covered everything. I think I'd just reiterate that I think job sharing, as you know, Karin, I think is the best way of working. Having done full-time, part-time and job sharing, I think it's the most brilliant way of working for both employer and employee. And I'm really grateful that I was able to do it and do it for so long. But when you do give up work, I think I would also say to your listeners, wow, retirement is great. Don't listen to people who say, oh, it's all downhill and it's decline and decrepitude. Not a bit of it. I think it's a new stage of life, and you can grasp it and have the most wonderful time, as long as you've got your health, and as long as you've got enough financial security. And I appreciate not everybody is lucky enough to have that. But if you have that, you really can have a great time. And there's this U curve of happiness that shows that as you get older, you get happier. So the research backs that up. So it's a wonderful time, and something not to dread, but to look forward to.
Now, how can people find you on social media, Maggy?
Well, I'm scattered around. I'm on LinkedIn, of course. I have 2 Twitter accounts, one on aging called Age Joyfully at Aging Better, and then one at Maggy Pigott at Maggy Pigott. And I'm a bit of a Twitter addict, so I've got about nearly 11,000 followers now. So please, I'd be delighted to get some new followers. Do join. I've also got a website, which I started in the pandemic, howtoagejoyfully.com. where it's a bit more about me and the book. And I'm also vaguely on Instagram at Age Joyfully. Not very active on Instagram, but I thought I do a bit on Instagram as well. So various places that I can be reached.
That's great. And I will be sure to put all of the links into the show notes as well, so people can, reach out to you and, learn more. And it's been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Maggy, for coming back onto the show.
Well, thank you, Karin, for asking me. I think this is wonderful. I don't think anybody's actually asked me to return for a second go. So I feel deeply honoured, and it's been absolutely wonderful. And I really, really enjoyed talking to you, Karin, and wish you all the very best with what you're doing, because I think it is so important and really, really valuable that we do spread the word out there and listen to people who can talk about these really important subjects which don't get talked about perhaps enough all the time. So thank you very, very much for asking me.
Thank you.
Thanks, and goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. We hope you gained valuable insights and new ideas. To keep listening to future episodes, please head over to iTunes or your favorite player and subscribe and give it a rating. We would very much appreciate a review and for you to share it on social media, so more people can start innovating in how they offer employment. Until the next time, goodbye!